I have my regular guest riding shotgun with me tonight, no pun intended, but my wonderful guest tonight is John Storm. And John was born in 1953 in a family of hereditary witches that count their ancestry too many centuries ago in ancient Tara. He was raised and trained in the craft as the only male witch in his family by his grandmother, and he has grandchildren of his own. He began serious martial arts training in 1963. His sensei became his father figure. He strove for perfection, holding a second-degree black belt in Mas Oya-mas Karate and a master's ranking in Chinese Kenpo. I'll spit that one out. I should memorize this by now, John. And by the early 1970s, between training for tournaments and running his own small chain of studios, he took radio and TV broadcasting at El Paso Community College in Colorado Springs, Colorado. This gave John his first good taste of journalism. 30-plus years later, and dying to write some of these experiences in a book, he wrote an entire series in the Witch Clan theme. These are character-driven stories with true-to-life characters and experiences melded into an entertaining fantasy. His first full-length novel is in the series is The Matriarch of the Witch Clan, and that's www.witchclan.com. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was taken down by the feds and still has been.
Yes.
And yeah, it is. And you can correspond with the author or get in touch with John. I believe he and his family sponsor and are also registered as Witches of the World, and that is at witchesvoicewitchbox.com. So you can go in there and hopefully access some of their archives. And John has his books available on Bookrix, which is one of which is called Practical Witchery, available for free on Bookrix. And I highly recommend this book for anybody out there. It's a fabulous book. And John was generous enough to give it away for free. So that's a lot to be said right there. And for the longest time, he's kept his MK Ultra exposure rather low key. It's that it's always seems to be too much for him to get people to get their heads around, and it's no fun drawing out these experiences for him. And even then, his craft is as much a part of him as breathing. And you know what? He's resurrected on and off for I don't know how many decades, but we're happy to have him on board tonight. And please welcome John Storm to the show this evening. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
It's wonderful to have you here, breathing and alive and resurrecting to some degree.
Yeah, that's something I can't always take for granted, it seems.
Right. Yeah, I know you were on Lorian's show not too long ago, and that was an excellent show, too, by the way. So I'm glad that we're getting you on here and giving you some airtime to communicate, because you have so much incredible information to share with everybody. And I don't know where you want to dive into tonight. You know, we were touching before the show there, all the weird that's going on here in the world, and kind of how we've been oppressed, not only by dirty government, but also the fact that they've tried to oppress our abilities and our state of consciousness. And I don't know where you want to dive into. I'm going to let you roll with wherever you want to go.
Well, a lot of you that know me or watch my Facebook know I've been kind of going through some turmoil the last week or so. It's really, really difficult living in a house where you're hostilely not wanted. All of a sudden, vehemently, violently, and I've been here, it's just over a week now, whether they like it or not. Hey, I'm paid up till the 3rd, and they tried to get the police to throw me out, and the police were, asked me if I wanted to file for elder abuse, which I don't. I don't agree with the system or what they'll do, and I kind of got my own ideas as to how I want to do things. I haven't lost my power. I may be sick and cancerous and everything, but I really haven't lost my power. And I'd like people to understand or to retrieve their own power, because the government has been abusing it. Government, many churches, in fact, I dare say most of them, everything's like a big MK deal. Well, the thing around here in Vegas and that I've been noticing is these 5G towers, ever since I got here, just up, every couple of blocks. Mm-hmm. It's like before you could have, this is an advance in the technology and cell phone technology. How is that so when that used to be all you had to do was have 2 cell phone towers in line of sight of each other? You could have one on this mountain over here and one on that mountain over there, and everything in between is covered. Right. Right? So why do we have to have one every block and a half throughout the city? Now, I went around with some of my paranormal gear, but some of it measures microwave and that as well as Gauss and that. So I went around and start checking out some of the big fake spruce tree that I could see, as I step out the house and walk around the block. Now they have these, I don't quite know how to describe them. Let's say like antennas or kind of partial dishes that point in different directions off of these towers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of these is at a place called Fabulous Freddy's. Talking about the one over on Valley and West Craig Road in North Las Vegas. And when I was taking the readings off of these things, and there's another one just a block and a half from that, the safest place to be is practically under the darn thing. If you're right there at the car wash and that, you're fine. You hardly read anything. All right. But if you step back, because the tower is high and these things aim outward and slightly downward. So from like across the street down a ways, you'll see the thing pointing right at you. You turn on the millimeter and bam, it spikes you. All right. Now, everybody in these neighborhoods, in the direction these things are pointing, are getting radiated. They're getting microwaved. It doesn't look quite as bad as I was getting back in Watertown, New York, where the pipes would heat up to the point where even the cold water would come sputtering out in steam. The pipes up above ground in the house would be heated by the microwave being beamed into your house. So, turning on the hot water and having to wait a couple minutes, no, forget it. Even if you turn on the cold water, it'll be hot because you've been microwaved. It's one way to tell without fancy equipment or gadgets or that. You may notice headaches and that, but I'm dealing with leukemia and chemo, and I got such a variety of headaches. It's ridiculous. But when this thing hits, everybody gets a headache. They start getting cranky. Now, this other morning there, I had to kind of slip out and kind of go to a doctor's appointment. And while I'm out, I'm listening to a news thing on the television. And there's like people around here in where I've already measured myself of the 5G tower there. People in the range of that thing. That's actually, they're having a lot of people get violent and attack each other.
I believe it. Yeah, you're seeing it.
There's a lot. Yeah, as I was sitting there listening, there was like several people within the neighborhood and near the neighborhood that, they're reporting, murdering each other. You go down the street, you see where cars and stuff have gone off the road and hit the concrete walls, because this place is like, there's road, there's concrete, then there's a wall, which is a 6-foot wall everywhere. The place looks like a concrete honeycomb. There's like, but people will drive off the road and hit the wall. Why?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, besides it being Vegas and being drunk or high or whatever, but there's this other stuff going on. There's a pattern to everything. And that's kind of been what had been going on here for a while. I'd seen the stress kind of building up. And I figure, okay, I got to get on my own and get to where I can take care of myself, because the last time I remember this happening, I was in New Hampshire with my oldest daughter, I
remember.
Daughter. Yeah. And then all of a sudden one morning, and remember that phone call you said you were going to make? I'm reminding you, and I get sworn at, punched in the head. And then the cops called on me, pulled out of my sick bed, taken 2 cities away to Manchester, and then turned loose in a blizzard with no resources, and I'm not allowed to call home.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah. So now it's like, throw them out immediately, put them out in the desert. What and it's kind of like I wouldn't, it's like 100. It was 105.
It's triggering. I'm telling you right now, there's something going on.
It's exactly it. It's and some people that I wouldn't suspect could be. But it's not triggering me, but it's kind of like, all right, the only safe thing to do now is to live alone. The only way that makes this really doable right now is because of the cancer, I get a visiting nurse once a week, and that, so there will be somebody checking on me, because I could fall asleep and miss a whole lot of shots and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of this stuff is crucial right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, there is a pattern. There's no doubt about that. And I do know with people who've been involved in any type of, whether it's covert harassment or MK Ultra type programs, there's always that pattern that goes on where there's this triggering that happens with people in the environment. And, I think everybody's programmed. I believe every single person on this illusion of a world has been programmed to some degree.
Absolutely.
Now, depending to what level, that's another scenario. But what's really interesting? We were talking about the violence spiking up. I believe these people have been programmed already, and that they're just being triggered by the frequencies connecting onto some of the cell phones and the transmission of the signals and training their brains. I mean, it certainly looks that way to me, and that's what I've been noticing more and more. But I'm telling you, the toxicity levels and the energetic, the way it feels, is no good. No good at all.
It's rough. It's rough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the energy all the way around. In fact, these days I can't. It's like the sun's no longer yellow; it's white. I can't go out without dark glasses, or the UV just whites my vision out, so I can barely see. It's almost like being snowblind.
Mm-hmm. Everything's changing. The whole atmosphere, the biodome, everything has completely been weaponized to such a level. Yeah.
And most of my life, it's like, geez, you get a beautiful summer day. It's like 80 degrees, the sun shining. It's like, for me, a pair of shorts and a smile. The uniform of the day. That's it. Maybe get a sunburn, first part of the year, and then nice and brown the rest of the year. And that's it.
Just being happy.
Wander, that's it.
Right. In those days, it was nice. We could actually be happy, live in the moment, and just be outside and be happy. Nowadays, it's impossible to be happy. In my opinion, you really have to work really hard to be happy.
You have to work at it. Yeah, you definitely have to go after it with intent. You can't just kind of trust fate that you'll be able to go here or go there and be content and be happy.
Yeah, basically, we're all in. It's a complete frequency fence. I mean, people don't have to go to prisons anymore, because right now everything is so saturated with technology that we're literally in the prison already. This is
exactly. I can't get on an airplane and go to one city or another. I have to either ride a bus or drive a car or a train or something. But I can't get on a plane, and I'm not even a criminal. All right, I can't leave the country. I did get a passport. It was flagged immediately. The first time I tried to just cross the border in northern New York just to go visit my grandsons, across the border in Ontario, they stopped me and gave me about 3.5 hours of hell, and I just want to beat the snot out of those border guards. They're making me miserable, and it's kind of like, oh, man.
Well, we kind of touched on this before we went live, but it's as if they want to keep everybody stupefied and dumbed down so that they can look smarter. And I think that's what it boils down to. But they underestimated most people, that we are beyond the illusion of where they've tried to contain people's evolution.
Yeah. In my case, there was one thing and I didn't understand it. I couldn't see it for what it was, but there was a lot of hypnosis involved, and it was one of the ones that I never suspected and never unhooked. Was when I got the little triangular implant up my nose by the little gray guys, they're Mirthers, they were called. But I was going somewhere specifically with that, and I just lost it. I hate it when I get up on a bunny trail like that. I look for a bunny trail, then I lost the one. We were talking specifically on. Let's see. Did I brought up the implant? There was.
That's okay. But I was going to ask you. You still have the implant up your sinus cavity?
Oh yeah, and more besides. It's. I from the time I start looking at the MRIs and I went and retrieved the disc myself and checked it out, it's like I have been dumbfounded and astonished. The cool thing is, though, and probably, around the time of the coma, I start finding out what the implants were actually for and who they were actually from. It's like I got at least three factions of implants in my body. What I call normal for most ultras is the one at the base of the skull and the back of the head, one behind and below the left ear a little bit, and there'll be another one in the left hand. Mine is just below the base of my middle finger in my left hand. Those, just about every ultra, even just the lab rats, I'm talking about non-agents, people they worked on, but really weren't agents. It was just somebody to work on, to try to perfect something that they could put on somebody they're going to spend some money on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a terrible way to put it, but that's exactly what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately. Yeah, there's no doubt about that one.
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because, in my opinion, we already are the technology naturally through our consciousness, so we're already activated, and all they do is hijack those signals and run their own.
Yeah, that's about it. And basically they keep you locked in with bad information, bad perceptions. It's like we've talked before, especially around like Halloween and that, about witches and people's perceptions of what a witch and what we are and what the holiday's about and all that other kind of stuff. When you say it, you say the same words, but what they see, what they perceive or think they see is something ridiculous. And it's like, no wonder they don't believe in it, and they can't understand why you don't feel ridiculous claiming, that you're a witch. Hey, you're a big blonde guy, not a green-faced hag. And it's
right. Yeah, they automatically assume it's satanic. It's this, it's that. Yeah, it gets old after a while. And it's all about the way they've been imprinted with the information and the symbols. And
the thing with religion, all right, now every time they dig up a structure that they do not understand precisely what it was for, it becomes some mysterious religious temple. Or some religious thing, or a religious sacrifice, and they don't understand. People had laws, they had death penalties, they had buildings that served other functions, other than, I hear him talking about Göbekli Tepe, and it makes it sound like these guys pretty much climbed out of the trees and a hunter-gatherer and decided we gotta go cut ourselves some 30-ton stones to set up so we can pray to God. And
diversion, always a diversion.
Only a 21st century fluoridated idiot would think that somebody's going to come out of the jungle and build something like that for those particular reasons, and that's not the functions those things served.
Right.
Having come up in that kind of a culture or that kind of clan where that history stays pretty much the same, it does vary with the eons. I can tell. I could tell even when I was younger, reading the different grimoires from different time periods, that the focus of the family, varied over the years.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, they've always hijacked those power spots and those ley lines. I mean, the military is notorious for that too. So anything here with any potential power has been manipulated or hijacked to some degree, which is a shame.
Give you a wrong idea of it, so you never gain your power. This is how people who are not, I'm not saying it just to be mean or out of spite or anything else. I'm saying it because somebody that is so unwired in certain areas don't have the hardware to perceive or grow past a certain point. This year's robot's only capable of so much. Next year, he doesn't get any better. I don't mean to call them robots, but they might as well be the elite net that run the world on war and weapons and oil and all that other kind of stuff to make themselves power and keep themselves in control and everything else. They are nowhere near as evolved as, I would dare say, any person listening to this show. If you've got that kind of awareness that your interest is that piqued to listen to something like this, then your potential for growth and evolution is far greater than the people that are actually pulling your strings right now, the people that pay your president, and the one everybody thinks that somebody voted for, and it wouldn't matter who voted for whom or what, they chose. And that's what you got. And when you complain about it, they don't listen. They put other stuff on their news station so people don't know. Knowledge is power, but being lied to is sapping your power. It's lying to you should be a crime. It is a crime. They just say otherwise because they're criminals running the cookie jar,
Yeah, it's very deceptive. Well, like I said, they want to make themselves out to be looking smart when in fact they're not. They're actually looking like a bunch of idiots. And I kept saying this, I put this on my Twitter earlier. I said, the more you lie, you become a professional liar. That's bottom line. If you're good at lying, then that's all you're going to be known as. And eventually that person who's a liar is going to be literally dumbed down themselves because their whole life is based on illusion and delusion. There's nothing there.
Indeed. And that's the thing, the witch meaning a wise one. A witch's power is manifest in their unbroken will and word. You can look at this on many different levels. Just sit back and ponder what that means. All right, on many different levels. That unbroken will and that unbroken word and that exercise of that will in keeping that word, that willpower is your horsepower for your spellcraft. Making shit happen, as far as the average muggle's concerned.
It's mastering consciousness. Yeah.
Right. We're not victims of circumstances. We're called wise. We're supposed to be masters of circumstances. We're supposed to have the power to make stuff happen. And we do. And we do all the time. I used to get so angry when I used to work at Kodak because you had all these crazy high-paid engineers over top all these workers, and it was the workers, all the quality had to be put in before the items left the factory. So that had to be done by the workers, not by the engineers, by the workers. So this place's reputation, its quality, its product was all based on the ethics and the shoulders of the workers, not the engineers. I used to have a lot of fun messing with the engineers there. They think they're smart, Pseudo-intellectual, you know what that means? Yeah, that means not only am I smart, but I'm half Japanese.
What's funny is, the more you learn, we're just on a different spectrum. A lot of people, when you start evolving and mastering consciousness, you go to that high level of consciousness where you're kind of seeing things and observing things from a very high frequency band. And for these guys, I think there's a lot of envy and jealousy. So that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons they try to tag people and manipulate them and get them to be dumbed down so they can pull them into the orbit so they can create this false matrix. But it's not working for any of us anymore. They can't hold us down.
You just inspired me with that analogy. I like it that the higher, raising the higher, and that seeing the whole picture or seeing a bigger picture. I liken the average person to watching a train go by, but they're looking through the knothole of a big plank fence. Okay, and you only see one car at a time as it passes in front of your knothole. Now, the wiser kid is sitting up on top of the fence, and he can tell you that there's a train car coming with Corvettes on it, 5 cars down the way. It's like, is he psychic? Well, to the average person, he would seem so, wouldn't he? He can see the train a ways away. He can see things coming that the other person looking through the knothole can't see until it gets there. And his view of the train as to whether the train is long or short, the person at the knothole has no clue whatsoever. The person sitting up on a fence, it may be a long fence, and they may not see the end of the train for the while, but they'll know it long before the person at the knothole does. The person on the fence has the better perspective, seeing the whole picture, what kind of train it is, and that the person at the knothole, the person who's getting their news off of CNN or the newspaper or just moment by moment off the radio or the owned media, they're not getting the real picture. When they walk out, they get the warning, well, geez, I got to take care of myself and my health. If it's going to rain or it's going to snow, I need to bring an umbrella or a coat. But they get bad information, and it's supposed to be sunny and 80 degrees, and you go out and dressed in shorts and your loud Hawaiian shirt, and it snows on you, and you get sick with pneumonia. And that's the thing, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, whether you're in business or something else, or going into war, if somebody gives you bad information before you go in, you're doomed.
That's right.
You're
Sabotage.
under their control.
Correct. That's what they're doing here.
You're going to succeed. If somebody convinces you that your 1978 Ford Pinto is actually a 1953 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, you should go trade it in and buy a new car. No matter what you believe and how sincerely you believe there, when you get to the car dealer, there's going to be a whole nother revelation of reality.
So true, isn't it? And that's just like the multiverse too. And that's the thing. People have been so misinformed, I guess you could call it. But it's
Yeah.
been deliberate and it's been sabotage. You know, when I look and I see how much damage has been done layer after layer for century after century here, I have no tolerance anymore and no patience for it. I simply think it needs to be dealt with. And end of story.
Indeed. Well, as far as these ETs are concerned, we're supposed to become more responsible for ourselves. I'm talking about the good ones, the decent ones. They're not going to do things for us, and really they shouldn't. We'd never learn. We'd just continue on as we have been. It's not like we haven't been warned for decades about our lifestyle and our consumerism and our government getting more and more fascist as it goes along. It's getting so ridiculous. You know, all the foibles and everything with the vaccines, and people are dictating who have no medical credentials whatsoever what medicines you can or cannot take or should or should not take, and a cop will shoot you if he catches you taking them. You know, it's ridiculous. It's to the point now where people, you know, like myself, are saying, what do I need a government for? Why? What do I need somebody who is looking through a knothole, all right, telling me and setting rules and dictating that for my life and my happiness? Now, of course, none of us are happy. None of us are doing well. None of us kind of got the jobs or the pay that we had worked hard for. I'm pretty sure of that because all the good paying jobs got shipped out, and just about anybody that had to look for another job took a cut in pay. I've had to do this over and over again, so I know this drill. You know, so I mean, what do you need a government for? Yeah. Now you're homeless. You're thrown out of you know, you got foreigners coming in. Now, I'm not against the foreigners, but they're brought in because they got higher math and science skills. You go to your hospital, look at the pictures of all the staff. How many of the names can you actually pronounce? All right.
None. And not all of them are geniuses. We're getting the criminals too, and that's another parallel, but that's another scenario altogether. That's pawns on the chessboard.
It's part of it too. Like I say, I'm not complaining about the foreigners on there. The reason there's less Americans is because less you can handle the math and the science, and then what you're getting fed is science. Isn't science at all. It's it's religion. You believe it because Dr. So-and-so told you, and he's got tenure at such and such. I don't care if he's sitting on a golden throne and silk slippers at the Vatican. It's still a religion. You know, and it's still entertaining people. Yes, be good to the poor and kind, and to the fatherless. Be pure and chaste. And you're bopping little boys sitting on a golden throne while people starving all around you. And they're Catholic.
Exactly right. And that's the thing. They're an abomination. And I always pick on the Vatican, but that's the bottom line. Look at all the atrocities they've done and all the molestation.
They're not the only abomination.
Oh, no, it's disgusting.
They're just up there dressed in gold and silk and shining for everybody to see. And it's just so sickening to see the people. I've heard them. I in fact, some of the YouTube things that you heard them. I had to. Grandma taught me that, you know, classical education. I had to learn Latin. And this guy's praying to Lucifer, and it's like, how many people there? I know every one of the priests and the bishops and, you know, cardinals and all of that understood exactly what that prayer was. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the people, since they speak Italian and it's a Latin-based language, kind of had a clue a lot of what those words were. But what turned off in them all that they let that slide over their head? Yet they say they worship Jesus and all this other kind of stuff, but they're praying to Lucifer. Yeah, and it's okay for these priests and stuff to be doing the hideous, I don't even like mentioning it, hideous things they do to children.
Well, that's the whole idea. It's so contaminated. When we look at the world and we start peeling away the layers, which is, in a sense, it's good that we're seeing all this, and we always knew it was disgusting.
Yes.
But now we're really getting a good taste of what's happening here on the world and on the timelines. And I think that it's, like I said before, I think this is it. This is it. This is the end timeline. And you know what? I hope that the universe hits them in where it needs to hit them. Beyond man's version of God's law, beyond God's law and the versions of any belief system.
I like to just think of it generically. You know, not according to one religion or another. It's karma.
Exactly. And that's why it's called the universal law, the universal way.
Yeah, because we have one law of the universe, the number one law is free will, which means you can do absolutely anything. All right. And some people just thrill at the very thought of that. But see, the other thing is everything has its rewards and consequences. Everything. Everything you do. And that's part of your growing up, is being responsible. Putting upon somebody, well, what can I do? The president's droning the hell out of those people. It's what my tax dollars are being used for. It's not my fault. It's the people we put in charge of ourselves. You put a moron in charge. I don't care if it was Trump or Hillary or anybody, okay? I don't care if it's your mayor, your chief of... When you put people in charge over you, you give up your power, you're still responsible, even when you fail to choose. You choose nothing, you chose. You are responsible for what you chose or didn't choose. And we have to get to where we take responsibility for ourselves. Before I start getting the seizures and that, I was driving. I let my New York State license expire, and I was driving without a license because the Constitution, the Bill of Rights says I don't need that. All those laws that says that I got to tell somebody or ask permission to buy a gun or buy a car and then get in it and drive it on a road that I paid for. There's those laws are null and void under color of law. And I got stopped a few times, tail light out, headlight out, or something like that, or I was going a little too fast in a speed trap. You got 8-lane highway, and all of a sudden the speed limit's 30. Right. Yeah. I got busted in one of those. And they say, well, we got you for not a license, but I send a thing where I wrote out a thing. It's on my Facebook page, basically, that I do not agree. There's a part in the law where they presume that you agree with them. All right, that you comply to be governed. All right, and basically I did up a legal form saying, no, I do not agree to be governed at all. Yada yada yada. These are my cause. This is who I am, all the proper legalese needed. And it's like, I just mailed that in. You can mail in the ticket. Yeah. I mailed a copy of that in. As long as it's been posted someplace public, Facebook works, for 30 days or more, it's valid. They can't give you a ticket. They'll just dismiss it and quietly and say nothing because they don't want anybody coming in and getting out of their $250 fine for having a tail light out. How does this help you? You live from hand to mouth. You're paying the bills. You're trying your damnedest to pay the bills. If it isn't hard enough when you got kids that they hit you with, tomorrow I got to have 40 cupcakes and Valentine cards for my class. And you just thought you had the bills and enough for groceries left. Now, all of a sudden, on your way to the grocery, your tail light burns out. Now you got a $250 fine or whatever they're charging in your place now. Some of those prices I've seen are ridiculous. But, you can afford to, and they want this now. All right? Not later on the convenient layaway plan. How are you going to feed your kids? Do they care? Oh, and if for some reason you end up out of your house and homeless and somebody wants to feed you, they got laws now saying you can't. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is what I mean by drink of water and collect the rainwater off your roof and get a drink of that. They got laws all of those laws are illegal. We have to take back our power. We have to be responsible for ourselves because, face it, if every American was responsible for themselves, would you be picking on, would you be importing Muslims, and would you be droning the hell out of people in countries that we're not even at war with or even have a reason to be at war with?
Right. Yeah, well, they do it because they can. That's the bottom line. And nobody stopped them. I mean, the corruption level is that this has been going on for so long, as you were touching on before we started the show, is that it's been going on for so long that they've gotten away with it, and nobody's really stopped them. Nobody put the brakes on this stuff that's been going on. And,
but I've had a life lesson about bullies. Evil preys upon the weak because it fears the strong. And I learned as a young man, as long as I was cringing and cowering, they just come back day after day. the snot out of you just for pure enjoyment. Until the point where you figure, nobody's going to come and rescue me. I might as well take a crack at this. And you ball up your fist and you plant it somewhere on their face. And they get a bloody nose or a black eye. Now, all of a sudden, it hurt them to hurt you. I noticed right away, even as a little boy, that I got picked on. That person would go out of their way not to pick on me.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I lost the fight, just the fact that I fought back.
Right.
It's too much inconvenience for them. And usually when they do come, they always outnumber you or outgun you. Yeah, but if it gets to the point where somebody could get hurt. Now, even later, when I got good with my martial arts and MK Ultra would ramp up and I'd get in a gang stalking thing, I could hurt one person really, really good, really, really fast. And you'd be surprised how courage just leaves everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So, dealing with a mentality like that, I say it's time we get up and you have to. Well, that cop's got a badge and a gun. Jesus, what do you think you were supposed to have the right to have a gun for? Yeah. In case that guy wasn't as American as he ought to be.
Mm-hmm. So true. Yeah, now they're trying to take away all that too.
For an oath too, but he lied. So you got people like that in this country. The thing I like, I keep hoping for more of a tipping point, and it still can happen. But the thing I like is more and more people are actually waking up and getting wise to this. And I did a little experiment for myself. Sometimes, I'll get depressed. There's a lot of things going on, and it's like one constant fight for my life after another. And after a while, I get really, really weary of this. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling kind of rough and like, what's it worth trying to teach somebody and help somebody? And I posted this thing that was, well, it was ridiculous the minute I saw it. I was so disgusted with it. Fox News, and they're showing how bad the hurricane is in North Carolina. And it's like, I got a sister there. She's not telling me nothing like this. She's not reporting anything like this. I put my reading glasses on and take a look at this video. And this is like Japan. North Carolina doesn't have that damn many Japanese restaurants. So I just posted. I didn't say nothing. I just posted as it is on my page. And I mean, I got about 15 comments of people telling me this ain't right. This isn't so. This is Japan. And it's like, I don't have to tell them anymore. Or at least that stuff. It's like, yeah, they're woke. Time was I'd have to explain to them why I thought this was this, that was that. And it's like, now I can just put it out there and they'll tell me quick. And I love it. I love it. I felt it's the best I felt all day. I just, chemo and leukemia pain just start lifting up, and it was a good feeling. It's like, feel you're doing something. You're making some difference for people's perception. They get their own power back, and it's like, no, you don't have to obey them, and they're not that freaking smart.
No, they're not. They're relying on technology in the digital world, and once that goes, there's nothing left.
You also have to understand the system, the way the system works, and their education. The education is, you're not educated, you're indoctrinated. The information you're given is propaganda and wrong. Anybody who knows, and it's not like you don't have documents written by his own hand, that Christopher Columbus is not a hero. Why would you name cities, have parades and a holiday for somebody? It's not a hard thing to find out who the hell this man was and what he done. He wrote about it himself. It is historic. It just gets blocked here. All right. So you have to understand that when you get up on your SATs and they say, who discovered America and when? And if you answer anything but Columbus in 1492, you got those questions wrong. The persons who regurgitated that back verbatim are the persons that got the higher GPAs, got the better colleges, got the better, quote, educations, got to be the captains of your industry, your politics, and all of that. The people that regurgitated all that MK crap back verbatim. The ones that had problems with it, well, here's another thing too. They wanted you to be left-brained, but if you were right-brained, that means you were like artistic, maybe musically talented, or you could paint or draw. When you got to talk to, I mean, and you could be fabulous at it. And that's what I want to be. I want to be a musician. I want to be a concert singer. I want to be a painter, a poet, or a songwriter or something like that. And they'll say, well, we want you to take these classes and that because you can end up being a starving artist. So you'll need something to support your family, pay your taxes, of course. So they will try to direct you away from that right brain thinking into that left brain world. And if you do not comply, you will be the oddball in your class. And how many of you out there in Radio Land listening to this right now has been that person that's been a little bit different in school, and how did that whole system revolve to make you feel?
Right.
So the only ones at the top are the puppets, the meat puppets. Reciting, and it's wondering, how is that guy so good looking, dressed so nice, and dumb as a bag of hammers up there talking to me behind that seal or anything? How is he so out of touch that they can't fathom this? To actually have a congressman or a senator say, well, we don't want to go with windmill turbines and that because it's something we could run out of if we put up too many fans.
Well,
you could direct them at Washington, and all the blowhards could power those things, and we could power Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they're, it's just a defective race. I mean, I have to say this as just somebody looking from the outside, observing as a spy bird, and I'm telling you, there's a lot of defective stuff going on here, and a lot of the people in the illusion of power and control. And that's the problem. It's layer after layer after layer. And even though there are many people, who are very empowered, but that's usually like what I would say about 3% of what I call star beings, hybrid types, beings like us who are very switched on and DNA activated. And that's where the breakaway society, we just talked about this last night on my other show in hyperspace. I swear to you, it's a breakaway society. It's heading that way because we cannot be pulled down any longer with these gravity wells. We've got to move on. And if they can't move on, we can't let them hold us down. We can't let them kill us. We can't let them, manipulate our brainwaves. We have to move on. And so I don't know how.
Now, I was telling you about some of those implants. And I said I found out during the coma what some of them were for. Well, the one in the front, the triangular thingy, I don't know what that's for. There was little gray guys involved with that. There was a big manted bug kind of guy that was in there. That it's kind of interesting, though. My perception of that thing was different than the ones that I read about in the Molten House Earth Files. They said the thing smelled rancid. I thought the thing smelled kind of nice, slightly floral. And it didn't strike me as a particularly evil being. Very incredibly old, I was understanding, but it didn't strike me as mean. In fact, it thought I was very, very interesting because I was trying to think of the words. Didn't use words. It was like I was so curious that it just overrode everything about me, and my will to learn was just where I face a 9-foot bug, little boy, and just start asking questions. I'm sure you've seen kids that would probably do that.
And you actually had this revealed to you while you were in your coma?
Yeah, and some of it after, but actually some of the doctors actually helped, but they didn't know they were helping with that in particular. But some of it is to protect me from the other stuff, the stuff that's snapping some of these minds. See, I believe a great many of us has got MRIs where you got implants. I mean, a lot more than just Dr. Lear had noticed. If you look at the MRIs I got entire arrays. Now, I managed to get other people that had been in the program that got MRIs to share some of theirs with me, as they've got some in some of the same places, and everything that I've ever seen has been recorded. Everything I've ever heard has been recorded. This, to me, this is kind of a cool part because I have feared my entire life of being totally erased and unknown by the time this is over.
Mm-hmm.
My birth certificate's gone, military records, school records, all this other kind of stuff. By the time everybody's all dead and gone, and most of them are, nobody'd ever know who the hell I was or that any of this stuff ever happened to somebody like me, and they'd be doing it to your children and grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And nothing would ever happen. So for me, this is kind of a good thing because I'm getting a little closure in my life. The thing that happened in the coma, I was all hooked up to all kinds of machine. I died. And my blood chemistry was so wickedly bad. Plate count of over 150,000, blood glucose over 1,800, liver and kidneys shutting down to like nothing, next to nothing. And it's like, well, the ketoacidosis so bad I was skeletal. 140 pounds for me. I'd lost 100 pounds, and I was not a fat man.
Right.
Big man, but not a fat man. So they're trying to make up their mind what to do. Let them die, or we can try to revive them. But it's like, what good's he gonna be? And I just heart starts back up in the system. Liver and kidneys start coming back online in hours. I'm hooked up to all kinds of stuff. They didn't take anything off of me. They're measuring my blood and all this other kind of stuff all the time, and watching my liver and kidneys go from next to 0 to 95% within hours.
Very
I
interesting.
wasn't out of the coma yet, and they had to wait a couple days after the coma for me to be able to speak. To ask me, do you got anything unusual in your family? And I gave them my dreaded short and quick MK Ultra speech. Named some places and some names. They stopped. They looked at me for a while. They got up, walked away. I figured the next person I'm going to see is a psychologist. I did see one later on, but it was just to determine brain functions, what I might have lost in the coma and the strokes, and what I might have kept. Everything else, they come back with this really rigorous rehabilitation program for me. Well, if you can survive this, you can probably do this. They didn't have no problem with it, One's calling me Mr. Rogers, and it's no, Storm. No, I'm talking about Steve Rogers. I'm working on the original Captain America, aren't I?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. People wonder why. They just told you just woke up out of a coma. You lost 100 pounds of weight. You're sick. You're sore. And then they tell you that you are riddled full virulently of cancer. And you're smiling.
Wow. That's something else.
But I know. They know what I'm going to say. They know what I'm... Not because... Well... kind of programmed, but it's me. It's what I always want to say, what I want to do. It's like bringing me back to do what I want to do. As long as I didn't have a hard time dying. It's not the first time. I could be good with moving on. There's still more to do. I'm not done with this earth, but I'm not coming back like this. Yeah, right. I got things to do that I gotta be not human to do. And nobody's more surprised how not particularly human I am, but at the same point, nobody on this planet really is.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, I would say actually there's 3% of us that are way different, and then the rest are, I don't know what species, to be honest. That's just my own personal assessment.
12 species involved from what I hear, a dozen, but probably the main ones that we look the most like. And I mean, now look, they tell you that a chimpanzee is like 98, 99% genetically identical with us, but you cannot interbreed with a chimp, all right? Gestation periods are wrong. Baby won't develop proper, all right? But with these, the ones they call the Nordics, the Procyon and stuff, straight up, can live here, stand next to you, buy ice cream next to you. You'd never know. In fact, you could fall in love, marry, and have children. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
However, they're going to be a lot smarter than you, and maybe talented in ways that you don't see very often. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be like indigo children. And in fact, if you got indigo children, it's probably a result that one or more of you got more than a little ET DNA in you, and not in a bad way. I when I first found out about all the implants being real and not something in my imagination as a little boy, I became very worried, very concerned about, them taking over my body and turning me loose to end up being one of those ultras that ends up hurting a lot of innocent people. And see, that would be the horror to beat all for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
sounds like you're peeling some layers, a lot of layers.
It is. It's lots of layers. I pretty much got my disclosure as far as, do ETs exist? You'll be shocked to find out how many and how many different kinds live right here. And you'll be shocked to find we are not the most intelligent race native to this planet. There are some reptoids that have been living underground for 400 million years. We're the newcomers. And they're not so bad, though, but some of them are. Isn't that life?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. Like I said, we come from the stars. We go home to the stars. I say it every show, and it's really true. We're not from here, and we may incarnate here, but our essence of origin's off planet, which means we are star people, whatever species that incorporates. And I think that has a lot to do with your frequency and state of consciousness, and also where you were created before you showed up here on the timeline. Before you were born here, you were born elsewhere off on another world. And people have amnesia when it comes to that, but I think that some of us bring the data with us.
It's purposeful. It has to do with those elite ones kind of running the show, the slave masters, the puppet masters, so to speak.
Well, I think those days are over. I think the puppet masters are getting their butts kicked right now.
Yes,
go ahead.
They are. Another thing that I learned in the coma is I got kin, and they're here. Mm-hmm. Not just the ones that lived on the planet, but the ones that didn't and came or were scheduled to come. They're here. Whoops! I hear we got a break.
Yeah, we're gonna have our break already. You're listening to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I am Solaris. My wonderful guest tonight is John Stormm. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.